Welcome back everyone to another episode of Close to Broke. My name is Kieran, and today we have another very fun episode in store for y'all. As you guys can see, the game's already underway. Just getting things started up here. Hopefully we can run good and make some moonies. A couple things, as you guys know, that I have to mention as always. Channel memberships are going right now. I think it's $5 to sign up. Bunch of perks, get to watch videos early. You get to be involved in all of the lucky sweats that we drop out. And congratulations to the winner of the last lucky sweat. That should have been announced to you on your membership there. Outside of that, as you guys always know, you guys can always play with me on the Splash Squads. Link for that's in the description. And lastly, the most important thing that I can possibly offer to y'all is the WSOP giveaway that's happening once again this year. It's going to include your stay, your travel, as well as an entrance to a WSOP bracelet event this year, which is a big deal. So I'm doing one of those. The only way you can enter is by sending over a 60 to 90 second long video describing to me why I should choose you for the opportunity. And you can send that over to my email at c2bpoker@gmail.com. We're also doing one seat just for members, and there's not a lot of people that are members, like under 100 people, which is a really good chance. It might even be under 50, honestly. So a really high chance, really high likelihood, or a better chance of you getting chosen outside of these several hundreds of people that sign up, obviously in the other traditional fashion. Outside of that, I know it's confusing. Either way, I really appreciate you guys as always for supporting me and for coming through and showing love. The one thing I do also have to point out, I'm so sorry I'm dragging on here, but it's really important to note there is a scammer in the DMs or that is living here in the channel. What I mean by that is there's somebody that's commenting as @close-to-broke1 or @close-to-broke with a 0. It's not me. Somebody's trying to scam you guys. I would never, ever ask you guys to check out my Telegram. I'm gonna DM you and do some kind of weird shipping thing. That shit's weird. I would never do it ever in my life. The only place you can ever contact me seriously is gonna be through Instagram on my DMs @close-to-broke. There's only one, close-to-broke, CLOSE, the number 2 broke. That's the only way I'd contact you. It'd just be super goofy for me to ask you to hit you up on Telegram to do all that. So I know that's long-winded, but I thought it'd be really important to let you know because I don't want people to get caught up with a bunch of pieces of junk. So either way, appreciate you all. Let's get into today's session.
Today is a new day in our poker lives, and today's episode is gonna be off the wall. In this first hand of the episode, Under the Gun decides to raise it up to $35. The action on me next to act, we look down at Queen 9 of diamonds. I'll go ahead and make the call. The action folds over to a friend of the vlog here in the small blind that goes by the name of Chris. He's a really good friend of mine. He decides to 3-bet to 200. Under the Gun decides to fold, action back on me. My hand's not awesome, but it's not bad. I go ahead and make the call here. We're in position, a hand that can make some pretty good hands, I guess. So I go up to a flop here that comes 10-7 deuce with 2 spades and a diamond. Our opponent decides to down bet for 150, considering there's about 500 in the middle. I think taking one off here is not a bad idea. It's actually really good to peel one off here when you have backdoor, like double backdoors. It's like if you're ever going to float, this is a good hand to do it with. Obviously, we can steal it from our opponent on later streets. So I go ahead and peel one card off here, and the turn card blesses us in the ace of diamonds variety. We do improve to a flush draw. Obviously, our opponent can still have a hand like king queen, king jack, queen jack, maybe a hand like 9-8 or 6-5. There's a ton of random hands that my opponent can have that could be betting on this turn, which he does do, and he bombs for a massive size of 600. Considering I only have about $1,700 behind, I think I have a pretty clear-cut just jam or fold. I'm looking to utilize my fold equity because that's all I've got to my name at this point, and I decide to go all in for 1,700. Our opponent nearly beats me into the pot, which is never a good sign, and after some discussion, we decide to run out the board twice. The first river comes out a 5 of diamonds. Okay, so we make our flush. The river card in the second one comes out to 5 of clubs. I show my hand, and my opponent shows ace king. So unfortunate for us there, if only we ran it once. But in reality, we're playing for a lot of money, and for some people, they prefer to run it twice, and I will never, ever decline them that fact. We're playing a game amongst friends. Twice is nice. At least that's what they tell me. Well, the first time we picked up Queen 9, it worked out for us. Hopefully this next time doesn't do us any differently. Middle position decides to make it 50. It folds to me in the straddle. We look down at queen nine of hearts. I decide to make the call here, and we're going off to a flop that comes outstanding as it comes queen 10 3 with 2 diamonds and a spade. Flop and top pair, I think we have no other decision besides check calling. Although this board is pretty coordinated and maybe raising sometimes is a good idea to get value from those flush draws and those straight draws. But outside of that, calling seems fine. Turn card comes out, ace 6 of spades. It does bring in a backdoor flush draw. When the action checked over to my opponent, he decides to go for a really large sizing here of 300. A little worrisome now, as obviously our opponent can be doing this with overpairs. He can be doing this with a ton of value hands, but like we mentioned, there's way too much equity as far as it pertains to straight draws and flush draws for me to just fold my hand at this juncture. Although we do block some of the straight draws, what's more than likely is happening is my opponent's double barreling with a hand that has a ton of equity. So I've got to make the call at least one more time here. And the river card comes a not so great 8 of spades. Not so great because obviously some straights come in, and even worse so, the backdoor flush draw comes in. I think at this point we have a pretty clear check and evaluate. Luckily for us, all we have to evaluate is this chips coming into my stack. As my opponent checks it back, we show our hand and we are in fact good. Look at that. Pretty polar opposite from our last session, but things are definitely heading in the right direction, and that's what we needed. So let's take a quick break from the suited broadways and switch over to something even more enticing, a suited connector. I'm in the hijack and we look down at 8, 9 of clubs. I think 3-betting here makes the most sense. We're going to do this with good hands. Probably a good idea to do it with a hand like this. I make it 220. The small blind cold calls, and then both middle position players call as well. We're going 4 ways off to a flop that comes ace, king, 4, rainbow. Not great for my specific hand. We don't even have any backdoor equity, but this is really good for my range. Although I never, ever think that you should be betting here. I think we should be pretty much having a clear give up. I think I want to use my image because at this point we've been playing kind of tight to this point in the session as we've just not had a lot of playable hands. I just had a c-bet for a small sizing of about $250, which only makes up about a fourth the size of the pot, but that's what I make it. At this point, only the initial raiser makes a call. We're going off to a turn card that comes as 7 of clubs. At this point, my hand, as I mentioned, is not very good, but I think we've set ourselves up for a really good opportunity to go bet. I just had to bet 500 once again, going fairly small, allowing myself to have a wider range of value on this board. My opponent pretty quickly makes a call, and the river card comes out a king of spades. So maybe good, maybe bad, but not a card that I'm ever going to be able to bluff on here. Ladies and gentlemen, the jig is up. I go ahead and check it back, and my opponent pretty quickly shows ace queen. My opponent ends up getting a king on the river, and I don't think he's ever folding. So I think we did the right thing by checking back. Like I said, one of the superpowers in poker, honestly, is to just realize when, the jig is up. Happy we did so in that last hand, but we've got to get ourselves going on this next one. The $20 straddle is on. The cutoff raises to 40, pretty small. The button makes the call, and I'm here in the small blind with ace 8 offsuit. Not a good hand to do anything with. I think this is a clear just fold. I think calling here would be disastrous. But you know what might not be? 3-betting. In reality, a little too loose, but hey, we're going with it. I make it $250 to go. Both the cutoff and the button make the call. The flop comes out 10-9-3 with 2 clubs. We do have the ace of clubs, so maybe we can, bluff with this hand. I decided to bet really small. I make it $150 to go. Both opponents make the call here. We're going off to a turn card that is literally a miracle as it comes E7 of spades. It provides us with a ton of equity here. The only card that would have been better would have been the 7 of clubs, but we do now pick up an open ender. Being out of position, this is a little tougher. I think if I was in position, I'd definitely check this back and take my free card. But I bet 500, and once again, after quite a bit of thinking, both opponents make the call. Well, looking to improve on this river, and if not, don't know what the hell is going to happen. The river card comes E9 of hearts. Again, not a great card pairing the second card, but in this specific instance, things are a little different. I doubt that I'm getting called 2 times with a hand that just contains a 9. I think more than likely my opponents would have to have a hand like maybe 10-9 to ever end up on this river. And beyond that, I would imagine that one of those hands raises me. So outside of maybe 8-9, which I block, there's just not a whole lot of 9s for my opponent to have. There is a ton of top pairs for my opponent to have here. Maybe a hand like ace 10, maybe a hand like jack 10, king 10, queen 10. But I decided to just go for it because sometimes you just got to be like, hey, F it. Go for it. I just decide to bet $1,000. I don't need to bet big here. I think on this river, I want to go half pot or less. And after a little bit of thinking, both opponents end up making the fold. Oh my goodness. This hand is exactly the kind of hand that totally depicts what's going to happen in the session. Maybe they call or one of them calls and it ruins our session. Maybe they fold and we end up having a solid session. Well, time will tell. But for now, really happy to finally get a hand pushed in my direction. Well, if you haven't noticed by now, there's a $320 straddle on. Yeah, that's it's pretty big. Either way, the action is through the roof, and this hand, and specifically this game, is going nuts. With the action folded over to the $20 straddle, if I'm not mistaken, he decides to limp it up here. And with the action folding over to me in the straddle of $160, we look down at ace-jack off. This is a really good hand to isolate with. Really well. I mean, we have ace-jack. Come on. What are we talking about? There is like infinite money here, blind in the middle, like almost 1K. So I decided to just make it that much. I raise it up to $1,000, and only the first limper makes the call. We're going off to a flop that comes outstanding as it comes ace-5-3 rainbow. With the action checked over to me, I think checking here is just good. Don't need to blow up the size of the pot. It's already massive. We're going off to a turn card here that comes out the ace of hearts. With the action once again checked over to me. I bet $500, looking to allow my opponent to maybe call with a hand like king high, call with random middling pairs, maybe a hand like 5-6. But unfortunately, our opponent makes up his mind and deciding to fold. Obviously, not the greatest result there, but when you think about it, we won like $1,500 uncontested reasonably. We'll take it. Things started off hot, one a little tricky in the middle, but definitely are finding their way back in the right direction. One thing I should note before this next hand is we're playing the mushroom game or the kitty game. There's a bunch of random games for it, but y'all all know it. The small blind is the only hand or the only person that is eligible for winning the money in the button. The button, every time it passes over to you, you have to put $25 on said button. Either way, there's a $40 straddle on, the mushroom game is on, the stand-up game is on, yeah, literally all of the above. All of the games are on, the action is going freaking haywire, and with the action folding over to me in the small blind, I just had to raise it up to $150. The straddle and the double straddler make the call. We're going off to a flop that comes great, king, queen, 5, rainbow. With the action on me, I think betting really small here makes sense, so I decided to bet small for 100. Only the double straddler makes the call. And we're going off to a turn card that comes e4 of diamonds, bringing a backdoor flush draw. With the action checked over, starting on me, I should say, I think betting here a little bit bigger now makes sense. I decided to go about half the size of the pot, bet $350. Our opponent makes the call. We're going off to a river card that comes e5 of clubs. Great card, as it doesn't change a whole lot outside of the fact that we're now chopping with all kings, which is, I guess, again, maybe this is actually not a great card, but I think I want to allow my opponent to bluff with a hand like Jack 10 or a hand like a missed flush draw, so I just checked it over to our opponent. He thinks about it for a little bit of time before deciding to throw out a bet for 700. We didn't check the freaking fold here, so I snap call and show my hand, and it is in fact good. Shout out to Chris for making the effort at this bluff, and let me give you guys a little bit of foresight or foreshadowing on the rest of the episode. This won't be the last time we play against Chris, and there will be another big pot we play against Chris. Just wait. There are few things better in life than upgrading, and we're doing just that. As in this next hand, we pick up King Jack again, but the suited variety. The $20 straddle is on. I'm under the gun. We make it $60 to go. We get a whole lot of callers here. We're going off to a flop here. Woo, it's a good one. Jack 6-5 with the heart and 2 spades. Flopping top pair here. What a dream. With the action checked over to me. I decided to c-bet here for $150. Definitely a little bit on the bigger size here. Looking to go about half the size of the pot or a little more. In reality, we're just trying to charge a bunch of equity out there. Straight draws and flush draws to be had. And when that's the case, you've got to really price them out. Or, wait, we want to price them in and out? We're trying to make money. Like, what are we talking about here? Both the middle position player and the big blind call. We're going off to a turn card, which we're probably going to have to check if it doesn't come in an absolute brick, which there's not a whole lot of them. Yeah. Jack of hearts. Bingo. The only hand that beats us is 6s, 5s, and ace-jack, but outside of that, let's be realistic. We probably would have got raised by all of those hands. Either way, with the action checked over to me, once again, there's just a bunch of equity to be had here. We have two opponents here. There's straight draws and flush draws to be drawn out against. So I want to charge them. I make it $500 to go, and unfortunately both of our opponents make the fold. Unlucky for us there, as we couldn't pick up any more value, but I don't regret my bet. Both of my opponents would say they folded some equity as far as straight draws and flush draws. So unfortunate for us there, but you can't just allow them to get there for free. Quite some time has passed from the last hand, but look, we're still playing our heater. At this point, the button makes it $60 to go. We're in the big blind, and we look down at a beautiful ace queen of clubs. Suited. We love to see this. We decided to 3-bet it up here to $200. The action's now on the straddler, who out of nowhere 4-bets to $450. With the action back over to me, we're both playing like 8,000 or something like that. We're playing a lot of money effective. I just call. The flop comes out king 10-7. We flop ourselves a gutter ball to the nuts as well as an overcard. I decide to start here with a check, and my opponent decides to downbet for a really small sizing of less a quarter than the size of the pot for $275. Well, with this action, I think we have a pretty clear call with an over and a gutter ball to the nuts. I go ahead and make the call. The turn card is Magnifico. Chef's kiss. Literally, I could see the poker gods kissing the jack of spades as it falls off on the turn. Yeah, that's the nuts. That is literally the stone cold nutter butters. Only thing that it can prove here is if the board pairs or maybe a spade comes on the river. With the action on me, I think I make a subtle mistake here by checking it. I think that on this turn card, when we improve here to the nuts, although I don't know how to balance myself, in reality, I think we should just be betting. There's just a ton of equity to be had. There's also a chance that we could just be coolering my opponent if he happens to have a hand like Queen 9. If our opponent happens to have a set or two pair, they're probably never going to get away from it. And again, we've got to build the size of the pot as we have infinite behind. Either way, I check it over to my opponent and he decides to check it back, which I'd assume he'd be doing with a lot of his range to keep the size of the pot small here. The river card comes a beautiful brick as it comes a 4 of hearts, again changing nothing to the board. We still have the nuts. And with quite a bit of money here in the middle, I decide to go about the size of the pot or even more so. I bet $1,700. I'm looking to target a very narrow range of hands. You guys have to realize in a 4-bet pot, my opponent's range is going to be consisting of like 10s plus and maybe ace-jack here sometimes. I'm never going to get called by ace-jack, I don't think. I'm going to get called by kings. I'm going to get called by 10s. I'm probably going to get called by jacks, obviously, as well. I'm probably going to get called by a hand like aces as well. So all that being said, I think going massive makes the most sense. And honestly, betting even bigger than this probably is better. But, you know, I do that. I make it 1,700 and my opponent nearly beats me in the pot. He snap calls. We show our hand where he announced it actually. And our opponent shows a set of jacks. Oh, that's gross. Well, unfortunate for him, he didn't realize I actually had, you know, like 8 outs or whatever. So we were drawing really live here on that flop. Unfortunately, we hit the one of 2 outs that gets us paid the absolute maximum. We found a way to, you know, not win the maximum, and he found the way, you know, not to go broke in a massive cooler, but nonetheless, happy to take that pot down. Playing the very next hand. This is the very next shuffle. Positions have shifted over by 1. Under the gun decides to limp for 20. It folds to me in the small blind. I isolate up here with ace-queen offsuit to $100. Once again, the player from the last hand who 4-bet me, 3-bets me to $350. Again, with the action back over to me, out of position, not great. I decided to just call here, although in reality, I think 4-betting is just better. But we decided to play this a little more passively. We're still getting ourselves together after that big pot last hand. And yeah, we should probably get ourselves together a little quicker as the flop comes ace, queen, 8. About $700 here in the middle with the action checked over to my opponent. He bets massive. He bets $500. With the action back on me, I think we have a pretty clear-cut check raise. Again, there's a ton of equity out there as there's now straight draws and flush draws. Although my opponent won't be making up a ton of his range with the suited hands, I do think that we need to build the size of the pot against a hand like ace-king, ace-jack, ace-10. I don't think they're going to be able to fold against a raise. I make it $1,500 to go. Our opponent goes deep into the tank before eventually deciding to make the fold. Good fold for you, sir. Happy to take it down nonetheless. And it looks like we're going to be blessed once again, as this time, just a few hands later, we pick up pocket jiggities. Once again, I open up $50, and the same gentleman that's 3-bet us the last few hands in a row, 3-bets us once again to $200. The action's back over to me. I decide to just make the call here. Four betting again would be nice, but with a hand like jacks, honestly, I just try to play this a little more passively. I make the call here. I treat my jacks like I do my nines. I don't know. How do you guys feel about it? We're going off to a flop here that comes 7-5-3 with 2 clubs. Action checks over to my opponent who bets pretty big here for 250. I make a pretty clear-cut call. The turn card comes in 8 of spades. I check once again. He bets once again. I call once again. Pretty simple poker. The river card comes out a queen of spades. I check it to my opponent, who announces jacks. I didn't know if he was calling out my hand, but no, he has pocket jacks. And we have a beautiful opportunity presented right in front of us. Beautiful slow roll of a chop pot. We slow roll our friend here on dress, all in good fun, obviously. I still have never and probably will never slow roll somebody for real with like a real hand, but in a chop pot, I think it's all good fun, right? Nobody loses the pot. We win half the pot. No, it's good. It's fun. We show our jacks, and of course, funny hand there. Both have pocket jacks, but I guess we're both happy to chop it up. Rounding out our session, we have one of my favorite hands that we played today. The button decides to raise to 75. The small blind calls, and I'm in the straddle, and I decide to call with ace-10 offsuit. The flop comes out ace-king-jack with 2 clubs. I do, in fact, have the ace of clubs. So we flop ourselves top pair, a gutter ball to the nuts, and a backdoor flush draw to the nuts. The action's checked over to the button, who decides to bet 125. Action folds over to me. I go ahead and make the call. The turn card comes out the 5 of spades, changing probably nothing. With the action checked over once again to the initial raiser, he decides to bet pretty big for 425. I think at this point we have a pretty clear-cut call, so I do just that. The river card comes out a 9 of hearts. I decide to check it over to my opponent, who thinks about it for quite some time before deciding to go all in for nearly $2,000. At this point, I think it's really hard for my opponent to have a bluff here. A lot of random hands that are just punting and blasting off. Honestly, improved to 2 pair. Maybe a hand like ace-5, hand like jack-9, hand like king-9, king-jack. All those hands are better than mine. And I think at the end of the day, although I don't love it, and I am not the kind of guy that'd be greedy, at the end of the day, Chris has not been having the deck in his favor today. And I joke around and say, hey, I know you're bluffing me, but I feel like it's only right that I give you this pot. Let me know how you guys would do against this river. Do you guys call? Do you guys fold? Pause the video right now and let me know how you guys would do, what you would do. Do you call? Do you fold? And let me know if so, why would you do which one? Okay, I think you guys are done writing your comment down below. Our opponent had 6 highs, 6 deuce of clubs. Oh my goodness. Good hand to you, sir. That's going to wrap up today's session. A monster win that we definitely needed. I don't like saying the word do in poker, but it was the closest thing to it. We were kind of variance, right? Is that what they call it? We were just heading towards the right direction of probably winning some hands. So either way, things worked out in our favor. We ran really well. Didn't play that great in some spots, and I think we played pretty decent in others. Either way, let's sort of meet in person as we are going to be heading over to dinner now, and let me check in with y'all there.
All right. Today was honestly a really fun day. I mean, it's obviously when you run good and make some hands, it feels better. But yeah, we played pretty grade A poker, it feels like. Made one really sick bluff there with ace-8, which was pretty suspicious, but outside of that, it was just a really fun day of poker all in all, and I'm just really happy that we were able to get things rolling in the right direction. Nonetheless, we were into the game for 5,000 if I'm not mistaken, and out of the game for 12,300 exactly, which brings us up to nearly a $7,500 win. Played for a little over 8 hours, I think, so really long session as per usual. I mean, we did get a little early because we're here at dinner with the family right now, but all in all, I'm pretty satisfied with how the things turned out. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for consistently watching and supporting these videos. As I mentioned earlier in the episode, if you guys haven't already, WSB giveaways going on. And again, please beware of this shitty ass people that are trying to scam you guys out of your hard-earned cash, your hard-earned monies. I would never in a million years ever ask you for money. I mean, that's just some goofy stuff. I would never do that. I want to give you guys money. I don't want it to be the other way around. Either way, thank you guys so much for supporting. I've got to head back to dinner with my family. You guys have a lovely day. Thank you so much for supporting these episodes. Good day. Happy. We needed it. Get inside of the hole, one session at a time. Until next time, I'll see you guys then. Deuces.